Marriage is an important term in the law. It has great legal significance. You'll find the word marriage in real estate law, criminal law, the law of evidence, estate planning. Everywhere you turn, family law, wills, trust, you find the word marriage popping up everywhere. And the reason marriage is baked into the law so heavily is that from the beginning of our country's founding until today, the lawyers and the lawmakers have decided that marriage is an institution worth protecting. And it needs to be given some headwind. It needs to be protected and nourished. And therefore, we have all of these laws designed to give marriage an advantage. And when we look at same-sex marriage, we realize that all of these legal terms that are designed to protect and promote marriage are rules and regulations that also apply to religious institutions. Religious institutions have to follow the law. And as these laws speak to the issue of marriage, religious institutions have to follow those laws. Churches, church schools, religious colleges and universities, religious hospitals, faith-based social service agencies, daycare centers, adoption agencies, crisis pregnancy centers, religious camps, religious retreat centers. All of these types of religious institutions are regulated by the state. And today, these institutions are free to hold their beliefs. They're free to practice and observe them. They're free to teach and preach their beliefs. They're free to speak against beliefs that they disagree with. They're free to speak against behavior that they disagree with. They're free to practice what they believe, even if those beliefs are contrary to the beliefs that other people hold. Now, by changing the definition of marriage, which is built in the law, to include same-sex marriage, would demand, in the eyes of the law, equal treatment between same-sex married couples and real married couples, even though the religious institutions are committed to a different type of treatment. Now, when courts endorse the principle that sexual orientation, which leads to the idea of same-sex marriage, is just like race, and that's what they're arguing, the American government is going to get in the business of trying to treat faith-based communities like racists. This is how the battle is going to come. Step number one is the re-indoctrination of the children of our culture. The children are what they want to get. And when same-sex marriage becomes the law of the land, it opens the door to a social policy that says we need to teach the children that same-sex marriage is in all respects equal to regular, real marriage. And if you can imagine in 15 or 20 years from now, a little girl coming up to you and giggling about wanting to get married someday, do you realize that the normal, unracist or unbigoted question that will be asked of that little girl 10 or 15 years from now will be, gee, Susie, when you get married, do you think you'll marry a girl or a boy? That, folks, will be normal language in 10 or 15 years from now, once this gets root. It will be normal to wonder as a child when you grow up, will I marry a boy or a girl? Will I marry someone different than me or same from me? Because these kids won't know any better, because this is what they'll be taught in the classroom. The second attack, after we begin re-indoctrinating the children, is through direct government compulsion, through lawsuits against institutions like the church and all of these other religious institutions when they are violating the rights that are inherent in the same-sex married couple. The third attack comes through direct government benefits and approvals. Churches right now and most religious institutions have what's called a 501c3 tax exemption. This is why when you make charitable donations to these institutions, you get a tax deduction for it. The United States Supreme Court has held that the Internal Revenue Service can revoke the 501c3 status of any institution that is engaged in a practice or policy that violates the policy of the country. So that when same-sex marriage becomes adopted as the law of the land, any religious institution that's violating the principles of that policy will be jeopardized and will most likely lose their 501c3 status. which, as you can imagine, will have a huge financial blow to crisis pregnancy centers, adoption agencies, and churches. Licenses and permits that are granted by the government in order for these types of agencies to operate will be quickly pulled away from them so that they can't operate if they're violating the new social policy. The last attack that we will see will probably be making hate crime more specific and more advanced so that it will get to a point where the things that I am saying here today, will be illegal.